The luxurious restaurant buzzed with the quiet murmurs of wealthy patrons enjoying their evening. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in a golden glow, and the scent of gourmet dishes filled the air. Clint Eastwood, dressed in his usual simple attire, walked in and took a seat at a corner table. He didn't seek attention, nor did he demand special treatment. He simply wanted a quiet meal. A young waiter, Jake, spotted him and frowned, assuming Clint was out of place. With a sigh, he walked over. "Sir, are you lost?" Jake asked with a forced smile. Clint looked up, his sharp yet kind eyes meeting Jake's. "No, just here for dinner," he said calmly. Jake scoffed, glancing at Clint's worn-out boots and plain jacket. "This restaurant is pretty expensive. Are you sure you can afford it?" The snide comment caught the attention of nearby diners. Clint said nothing, simply tapping the table lightly. "I'll have the steak," he said evenly. Jake rolled his eyes and walked away, muttering, "People really should know their place." But what he didn't know was that he had just insulted the very man who owned the place. As Jake strutted back toward the kitchen, the restaurant manager, Ms. Reynolds, approached the table, her face lighting up the moment she saw Clint. "Mr. Eastwood," she exclaimed warmly. "It's an honor to have you here tonight." The room fell silent as several patrons turned their heads in shock. Jake stopped mid-step, confusion written all over his face. Clint simply nodded, his expression unreadable. Ms. Reynolds turned to the head chef. "Make sure Mr. Eastwood gets the finest meal tonight, and on the house." Jake's stomach dropped. He hurried over to another waiter. "Wait, who is this guy?" he whispered. The waiter stared at him in disbelief. "Are you serious? That's Clint Eastwood. He's not just a Hollywood legend, he owns this restaurant." Jake's face turned pale. The man he had just disrespected wasn't some ordinary customer. He was the very reason the restaurant even existed. Panic surged through Jake as he realized the consequences of his mistake. And Clint? He just sat there, observing everything with a calm, knowing look. As the finest meal in the house was prepared, Jake struggled to maintain his composure. His hands trembled as he brought Clint's dish to the table, placing it down carefully. I didn't know," he stammered. Clint picked up his fork, cutting into the perfectly cooked steak, and took a slow bite before finally looking up. "Son," he said, "how long have you worked here?" Jake swallowed hard. 6 months, sir." Clint nodded. "And in those 6 months, how many people have you judged before even knowing their story?" Jake had no answer. He lowered his gaze, feeling the weight of his own arrogance. Clint leaned back, his voice steady. "Respect isn't about wealth or appearance. It's about how you treat people, no matter who they are." The words hit Jake like a freight train. He had always judged customers based on their looks, assuming their worth by the brands they wore. And now, he had insulted a man who could determine his entire future with a single word. The silence that followed was heavier than any lecture he had ever received. As the evening progressed, Jake reflected on his mistake. He thought about all the times he had rolled his eyes at customers, dismissing them based on his assumptions. Tonight had been a wake-up call. Gathering his courage, he returned to Clint's table. "Mr. Eastwood," he said quietly, "I'm really sorry. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I guess I've been looking at people the wrong way." Clint studied him for a moment before offering a small nod. "Understanding your mistakes is the first step," he said. "What you do next is what matters." Jake nodded, determined to change. As Clint finished his meal, Ms. Reynolds returned with a bottle of the restaurant's finest wine. "A small token of appreciation, sir," she said. Clint chuckled, shaking his head. "No need," he replied. "But maybe give this young man another chance." Jake looked up, shocked. Despite his behavior, Clint wasn't punishing him, he was giving him an opportunity to be better. It was a lesson Jake would never forget. As Clint Eastwood stood to leave, the entire restaurant watched in awe. He had entered as a quiet customer and left as the man who had just taught an unforgettable lesson in humility. Jake, now humbled beyond words, vowed to treat every customer with the same respect, regardless of their appearance. As Clint reached the door, he turned back for a final glance at Jake. "Remember," he said, "character lasts longer than money." With that, he walked out, leaving behind a room full of people who had just witnessed something truly powerful. Jake exhaled, realizing that tonight had changed him forever. He looked around at the guests, no longer seeing them as rich or poor, important or unimportant, just as people. And from that moment on, he carried Clint Eastwood's lesson with him, ensuring that respect would always come first. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you never miss another inspiring tale.